Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'll walk you through the magic of conditional rendering, which is React's way of making dynamic UI decisions. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of this series of free React crash course. Here we got our React project code in the left side and our project running on the browser at the right side. Now let's jump into the video. What is conditional rendering? In simple terms, conditional rendering means showing or hiding parts of your UI based on certain conditions like if user has logged in or is data available or user has access to that data or not. We're going to check those items and render our JSX based on conditions that we have. The first way and most basic way of conditional rendering is when we got our app function right here, we use if statements right here. And here, of course, we're going to have our conditions right here. And inside of this, if this condition, for example, let's say here we have this condition 1 is true, we're going to return code 1. And then we can have another else right here, which in this part, we're going to return code 2, which I told you this is the one of the basic ways of our conditional rendering. Let's say here at the first, we're going to have this variable of is log in. And let's say at the first, we got this false. Here in our if statement condition, we're going to have this is logged in as our checking condition. And if user has logged in, we're going to have here this return and let's say h1, which tells welcome user. And now in the else part, if our user has not logged in, we want another h1 right here. And this time, let's say we have this please sign in. Now you can see right here, because our is logged in is false, we're going to return this else part, which is this please sign in heading right here. But if we have this one to be true, so let's make this true, you can see we got this result of returning welcome user just right here. But another way of doing exactly the same thing that we have done right here, but in very efficient way and good way to manage is by using our ternary operator, which I have shown you parts of this option in our JSX part. So for that here at first, we're going to have our return as usual as we have. Then here, we're going to have our h1 like this, and then inside of this, first we're going to check this is logged in right here. Then if it's true, we have the value that we want to pass right here. And if it's false, we want this value to go inside of h1. For the true part, let's say again, we have this welcome user, but pay attention because we want to pass this and return this, we need to put these in these quotation marks to return as a string. And at the false, let's say we got this please sign in. Now because we have this return right here, if we make this in single line, you can see we got this welcome user because this is true and this is going to return to our h1 and this is going to be render. But if this is going to be false, again, this please sign in is going to come right here. And of course, as you know from previous parts, here we can have some handlers. Let's say here we have this simple button right here, which is this sign in. And on click, we simply want to have this function and change our is logged into true. But as you notice, if we click this, nothing happens because this is static value and not state. So we're going to use states right here. If we use state here, as you can see, and the value is log in, and the base value is of course false. And here we got this function of set is logged in to be 2, and actually we don't need this anymore. And now you can see we have this please sign in, and if we click on this button which is sign in, you can see we sign in and now we got this welcome user text appearing. But in some cases, when we have, for example, our users signed in, we want to show some other paragraphs here too. For example, let's say here we want this kind of paragraph showing for our user. Again, here we can have this ternary operator, of course, which we're going to check again for is logged in. If it's true, we're going to have this paragraph tag right here. And if it's false, we're going to have nothing, which we can do by these simple quotation marks. And this is going to do the work. And actually, let's have another button here too. To let's say here we got this log out, and in this one we want to make this false actually. Now you can see if we log out, it doesn't show, but if we sign in, we got this result. But another way and good way of doing this thing instead of this is using logical AND. And for that, we don't need this part right here. At the first, we're going to have our condition, and then instead of this question mark, we're going to put two and sign right here. And this is going to act as before, which if this is true, this paragraph tag is going to be shown. And if this is false, nothing is going to be in our code. So if we log out now, you can see nothing is here. And if we sign in again, you can see we got our result. Another thing that we're going to have is having switch case for conditional rendering. Let's say here we have this variable of user, which here we're going to have if user is admin, if he or she is simple user, or let's say not logged in. And another one of, for example, let's say have access to data. Now, let's say here at the first, we got our user to be admin. We want this switch case here to have our items condition. So the variable we're going to check is this user. The first case is if this person is admin. In this case, we want to return this h1 of admin right here. In the next one that we have, let's say we want to check if it's simple user, then here we want to return another h1, which this time we want to say this is simple user and our break, of course. Then we're going to have our other case, which is have access. And in this case, we're going to return, let's say this h1 again. And here we say have access to the data, and don't forget your break here. And let's say at the last and default, it's going to have this return of again our h1 and please sign in. Now you can see at the first it's admin. If we make this to be simple, it's going to run this part and return this. So we got our simple user rendering. Then we got this item of have access. If user have access to some data, we got this item rendering, which is have access to the data. And if user has not logged in or something else, we got our default value of please sign in. Now you know multiple ways of conditional rendering, which is if-else statement. If you have some logics that you want to control, which are complex and you cannot use in ternary operators, we got our ternary operators to simply handle our conditional rendering in one simple line, as well as our logical operator, which does the same thing as our ternary operator, but shows only if the value is true. And at the last, we got our switch case rendering, which if you have some condition which can be in multiple cases and multiple values, and you want to render UI based off each value, this is the way that you can. And always make sure your conditions are clear to avoid unexpected rendering issues. So this was it. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And if you got any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll answer them as soon as possible.